The continuation will most likely be out on my boosty. Let's get started. In a sandy place, a porter is fighting for his life against a lower-level mob, barely managing to win by striking from within. When the monster falls, the porter stands up, catching his breath, happy that he can finally use his strength to defeat the monster. Then he is called, as he needs to do his job and collect drops from the mobs since he is a porter. There's nothing to be done about it, and he apologizes profusely. The awakened one calls him a useless, non-awakened trash. The world completely changed after the abyss was discovered deep within. Essentially, it's another dimension where monsters that exist only in fantasy stories are found. Awakened people also began to appear, and thanks to their powers, they could explore the abyss and defeat the monsters inside. Because of this, the standards for evaluating someone no longer depended on how much work they did or how hard they worked. Everything depended on the rank of their awakening. If their awakening rank was high enough, they were almost guaranteed a good life. However, this did not apply to him. He is a porter who only carries loads for the awakened and is not awakened himself. At 35 years old, he still hasn't opened his status window. If he doesn't awaken, he will never be able to live a comfortable life. He turns to say he has gathered everything, but what he sees shocks him. All the awakened have died a terrible death. As he tries to back away, he bumps into something or someone who says, "It looks like only one is left." It's a monster of SSS rank named Asmodeus. Desperate, the porter tries to protect himself with his weak knife, but Asmodeus destroys his arm with one move, making him fall and scream in pain. Even so, he doesn't give up. The porter's mind fills with despair due to Asmodeus's power, sinking deeper and deeper until he dies. He wonders if this is really the end. His parents tragically died in a car accident. He was constantly bullied at school, and he lived his life alone and miserable just because he wasn't awakened. Even now, in his last moments, he still wants to awaken. As his blood drips onto the ground, one drop turns into light of various colors, and the porter is transported to another dimension as the conditions for awakening were met. The porter notices a staircase descending, with a mystical being coming down it. He tries to make sense of everything, and when he looks back, he sees Asmodeus frozen in time. The being is surprised that he is still focused on Asmodeus after everything that happened, leading the porter to ask who he is. The being responds that it has no specific name, but some call it the king. It reassures the porter not to worry about it, as it graciously grants him power. At this moment, the porter loses his thoughts. King? Power? What is this being talking about? The king, as if reading his thoughts, says he needs to be wary. The reason the king chose him is because it admires his will and perseverance, even in his final moments. He desired more. However, the porter should see this as a one-time event, as such a miracle won't happen again. The porter still doesn't understand what's going on and tries to ask the king, but it says he will have to be patient, as the moment when he will understand will come. The king hands him a precious key. As the light flashes on the porter's face, he awakens in another place where some people call him crazy for ignoring them. One of them slaps him, bringing him to his senses. He faces a person he never wanted to see again, Huku. Huku asks what he is doing there, making his life a living hell. Huku continues to beat him and asks why he isn't responding. Then, the porter remembers what the king said about power and opens his status window, something he had never seen before. He also notices that he is 19 years old, which means he has gone back 16 years. If this is true and not a hallucination, it means what the king did worked. He starts laughing loudly, making Huku ask if he has lost his mind. When Huku asks if he wants more beatings, he is met with a furious punch that sends him flying back in tears. The porter officially declares that he is now awakened, wiping the tears from his face. Huku's goons start attacking him, trying to teach him a lesson. One of them attempts to punch him directly in the face, but the porter dodges and uppercuts him. Another, who tries to use ice magic, gets knocked out by a kick. Over the 35 years he lived as a non-awakened, he did everything he could to survive, from physical training and techniques to all known information about the abyss. He even mastered all interpersonal combat skills. There is no way he will lose to these weaklings who don't even know the basic fighting techniques. He defeats them again with his skills, but this time they fall for good. Standing over them, he realizes that he will have to reconsider his physical training program if he wants to build a combat-ready body. Huku regains consciousness and thinks this is nonsense, that the porter just got lucky. He attacks the main character again using the stone skin skill, which strengthens the body. He tries to punch the porter with his stone fist. This attack is also harder to dodge, as the speed of movement increases with the skill. Dodging another attack, the porter is caught off guard when Huku jumps high and tries to crush him with an attack that could likely kill him. As the dust clears, the porter tries to strike from behind, but Huku notices and turns around. With the stone skin skill on his face, he completely blocks the porter's attack. The porter tries to defend against the counterattack, but even blocking it, he is sent flying. He still holds on and remains conscious. Huku taunts the porter, saying he shouldn't have behaved like that, and now he has awakened too late. What will he do now? Run away or maybe try to fight with his awakened skill, if he even has one? All awakened possess skills and ranks, starting from F rank, which is basically comparable to an ordinary person, to S rank, which grants monstrous abilities. Unfortunately, the mysterious skill the porter has is unknown to Huku. He has never heard of it before, even with all his knowledge. But what's worse is that the porter is of F rank, with no chance of winning against Huku, who has a rank skill. Nevertheless, for some strange reason, the porter doesn't feel like he will ever lose again. Activating his skill, his red aura begins to emanate into the world. Huku is frightened, as he can't believe that this worthless person has truly awakened. The porter feels his body coming to life and can sense the magic. It's the power of devouring. The porter attacks again, this time with a much fiercer strike, as he wants to win with one blow to avoid risking his life. Just before his attack reaches the porter, Huku extends his hand forward, and a strange dark creature appears above him, slowly devouring Huku's stone skin. Eventually, it completely consumes his skill. As the stones fall from Huku's body, the whole class continues as usual, as if nothing happened. But at that moment, the sky turns a blood-red hue due to the porter's skill. After the dust settles, the result is clear. Huku is completely defeated, lying on the ground. As a result of the successful battle, the porter's rank changes to E, and he also gains the stone skin skill that belonged to Huku. Taehyung decided to drag all the guys he had beaten back to the school infirmary. The nurse was shocked to see that all of them had serious injuries. After the fight, Hen took care of his own wounds. Naturally, he didn't tell the nurse the truth about how the guys got hurt. He explained that they fell down the stairs, which of course puzzled her. But she decided not to pay attention since it probably wasn't her responsibility. After resting, he went home, thinking to himself that it was good because he could take revenge on his past offender and awaken at the same time. What a pleasure. However, there's one problem: the growth of his wound, which he could barely alter after many years of training, increased after one fight. The skill might be of F rank, but it is undoubtedly more powerful than an F rank skill and can even steal the skills of the opponents he defeats. But why did this king grant him such power, and more importantly, why did he force his regression? He has countless questions that need answers, but the most important thing now is to learn more about the devourer and how it works. He returns home, which makes him smile because, after his parents' death, he lived with his uncle for some time, who warmly welcomed him into his family. Upon entering, he thinks that his uncle will return late from work, so he should start researching, but his thoughts are interrupted by the situation. He sees 3 bullies and his uncle's nephew, January. He wants to ask him why he isn't in school, but from afar, he notices that Jan is rummaging through his father's money. Even before his regression, he still remembers the times when this kid wanted to have fun with other bullies and took all the money from the house to have fun with them. This caused a big commotion. Just think, it happened today of all days. One of the bullies stands up, surprised to see his cousin, Jan, so early, but why not just go for a walk? And clearly, He doesn't interfere with it. They just take what they came for and leave. Therefore, he should act like a good non-awakened person and leave. Taehyung just looks at him but then smiles because this is a great opportunity for him to try something new. He suddenly punches the bully in the face, knocking him off his feet, which greatly surprises the others. After this, Tan moves on, using the devourer, which scares the bully boss. But when he tries to activate the skill, a notification appears in front of him that the skill is unavailable. The bully is confused about what the hell he is doing. He is furious as he can't believe the devourer didn't work. The boss orders the remaining bullies to act, and they attack him with a barrage of abilities. One causes paralysis, another causes poison, and the third causes bleeding. These three statuses target Han, who can't hope to react as they simultaneously fill the entire building with light. After this, the bully boss asks how he dared to deceive them, pretending to be an awakened. He brought this upon himself. What a fool. Unfortunately, this is not the end, as the use of their skills was detected by the devourer, which confirms the use of all status effects and resists them thanks to its mysterious power. Our main hero laughs, thinking to himself that at first, it didn't work, and then it neutralized all the effects. How interesting. The boss doesn't even have time to understand what's happening before Han instantly covers his fist with stone skin and punches with all his might, so hard that this attack breaks the floor. Having dealt with the bullies, he now learns he can use the status window even better than before, which shows the general information about the corresponding awakened. But not all information is displayed. Firstly, his mana was not lacking at all, but the devourer didn't work. So, besides the normal description, there must be other factors that allow the ability to be used. In addition to that, apparently, because he resists and neutralizes skills related to abnormal conditions, like what happened to him earlier, he will have to test all this in practice to verify if it is true. But the most important thing now is to take care of something else. He asks his cousin, who witnessed the situation, and at that moment he speaks slowly, impressed by such an impressive sight. He was deeply moved and reflected on his actions, now humbly begging for his forgiveness like a dog or a cat. He will do whatever Han wants. Our main hero is surprised. He knew this guy was a fox, but he knew this long ago. Today it's not a problem since there is another incident that will happen today, something much bigger. He forgives his cousin, who is very happy, but under one condition: they must go together to do something at the warehouse, which has now become a restricted area. 3 Awakened people look at the abyss gate that collapsed, and now crowds of monsters are pouring out from there. This phenomenon occurs when monsters appear as soon as the path to the abyss opens. If everything is left unattended for too long, as it happened now, the gate will collapse. A man says that it has been 10 years since the last dungeon collapse, but these gates were created and collapsed simultaneously, which is very strange. Dean notes about the monsters that if they do nothing, the monsters will keep pouring out and eventually overwhelm them. A red-haired woman asks if they should evacuate the area, but the man tells her that it's okay since they have his barrier skill, which is B rank. Besides, it's just a small marine gate, which means that the strongest monster that will come out of it will only be C rank. Even if they break through, they are more than enough to handle this raid since they are awakened B ranks. Han runs through the city, explaining the situation to his cousin, thinking that everything should be fine since the control personnel is already there to save the situation. The cousin calls Han "Sir" after every sentence, which makes Han laugh. The gate collapse is estimated to be about C rank, so with the control personnel, who have B rank, there should be no problem, and this incident will pass without casualties. The cousin notes that this is exactly what he said, but Taehyung says that's only if the dungeon is indeed C rank. Meanwhile, the control personnel are dealing with the monsters coming out of the gate, but the man thinks it's strange since weak monsters like these shouldn't have broken his barrier so easily. That's when he thinks that maybe the mana coming from underground might actually be of a higher rank. The woman calls him as something big is coming out of the gate, and indeed a huge monster emerges and, with one blow, completely destroys the barrier. A giant ogre of A rank laughs, knowing that weaklings will lose their lives. The man can only be amazed after the sudden explosion. Jan asks Taechin how he could have known about this since there are no monsters around and the government did not give an evacuation order. He can't tell him that he returned. He tells him it was just intuition. The cousin doesn't understand how to respond to this. But then they approach the road where people are running from monsters. He declares that the gate is broken. The cousin doesn't even know what to say since nothing indicated that this would happen. Our main hero tells him to do what they talked about since he has other plans for these freaks. At this time, in a skyscraper, a man tells someone that the situation is out of control since the gate they thought would be C rank actually turned out to be A rank, and these gates, unfortunately, broke through. Help is impossible as the other awakened are busy exploring the abyss. So, the only solution is the appearance of an awakened SS rank, their only hope for survival. Therefore, he asks for help from the Blade of Madness. Help us, and Hans, with tears in his eyes, tells everyone to hold on since the hero named Hans will come and save them. This guy has a Chunibyo syndrome.
On the street, Tana easily copes with low-rank monsters who turn out to be easy prey. He also uses the Devourer on them, which absorbs their bodies in the blink of an eye, as he expected. The reason why the Devourer did not work earlier was due to fatigue. Since if it exceeds 70% the skill is not activated. Most skills do not rely on fatigue and work only at the expense of Ma, but even so, fatigue is an important indicator that needs to be monitored. The more fatigue becomes, the lower the power becomes, and the heavier the body becomes. Of course, it is inconvenient to monitor so many things, but there is one thing: if absorbs dead monsters, he can restore mana. As he absorbs the body of slain monsters, his skill rank also increases and becomes stronger with this constant growth. He may even be capable of becoming an SS rank or even higher than this. Is the first SS rank that has ever existed since after he freed himself from the monsters. Having finished with this, our main character thinks that he should return to his cousin and see what the situation is like there. Well, an unexpected turn knocks him out of his thoughts. He sees that right next to him someone is fighting with a red OGM while shouting out what this dirty monster will pay for the murder of our people, and on this day the great warrior Ankin Su will pronounce a sentence on you. He will cut it into many small pieces and also create a strong response. Nomitan is surprised at how easily he won this monster. This means that this is the same awakened one who decided the situation with the destruction of the gate before he regresses the link of madness. Hen. He is as populated as he is stupid, and how long does he act like this? They play a superhero in some action movie. Why is he here before Henry? Aggressive, a fierce battle with a giant ogre that was on the other side of the city when NSU prays for the dead civilians with the hope that they will find peace in the afterlife. Hina's skill is activated because he sensed the use of another skill, and indeed someone appears from behind. Hens and stabs him straight in the chest. It turns out to be a mad fanatic obsessed with battles who is happy that he finally caught the famous Hens. Meanwhile, his cousin is keeping an eye on the school nurse who is lying unconscious. He doubts whether everything is okay, but remembering that the then told him that a lot of people will die tonight and one of them will be their school nurse Neon because she will be focused to save other people. Ani is on evacuation to save himself. Hin knows that Kozan can put people to sleep using his skill. Therefore, he should put her to sleep and drag her to a safe place since he will take over everything else. He can only be surprised somehow Hen knows all this, but after some thinking, he comes to the conclusion, surely this explains everything. There is no other explanation. Yu Hyung actually sees into the future. He awakened with this skill. This is so cool, and how much he knows, so much. Nothing can go wrong in this regard. Yes, I think that the situation is very strange because this has never happened before. Hang Su demands to identify the person who hit him in the chest, but he doesn't answer. He's just surprised that the Born survived after his blow because he hit a critical place. Really awakened RNG. Hey, this is a completely different breed. However, this will make his hunt much more interesting because he likes those who resist. This is a villain of the rank of Han Sando. Awakened ones who commit crimes using their abilities are called villains, and this one in particular is a maniac who, during the destruction of the gate, wandered everywhere and killed for his own pleasure. But I'm sure that he should not exist here. Has the future changed because of his actions? Su calls him an evil bastard whom he righteously intends to destroy with his own hands when he tries to carry out his attack. The monster under him comes out, which confuses both of them. They manage to dodge the ogre's attack. Sonda notes that regeneration is truly amazing as expected from a beast of rank. Ogre hits the ground separating them, but Sonda still isn't going to fight him as he points it at Henson here as he notices Hyun. and he immediately heads towards him, considering him an easy target in response, and Hin activates the skill stone skin and answers him that idiot Sonda did not expect that HN was able to resist, and this surprise allows our protagonist to counterattack. At this moment, Sonda realizes that Hen is awakened, but then HN dropped out all the information about the maniac standing in front of him and his science of secrecy that he kill, and notices that it's great that they met. After that, an exchange of blows begins, as a result of which strong gusts of wind disperse. Sonda laughs because it seems to him that he is experienced enough to easily defeat Henna, who would have thought that Mish is completely useless against you, so he decides to use stealth and completely disappears from view. X on the main character will remain no. He can still hit him. Hyung tries to strike where he feels Sonda's presence but misses. The maniac attacks immediately after him, but to Hyun's surprise this time it's the maniac's Ko that inflicts damage on him. Sonda starts laughing because he hunted many awakens is on him, those who make a mistake just because they think themselves invincible. Now that his weakness is revealed, he must understand that he will eventually die, but before dying he must remember that all skills have their drawback. He attacks again Henna, who did not expect that the skin of the stone will have such a disadvantage skill. In fact, he attacks how much the blow breaks the stone, and the crushed part is replaced by the formation of a lower quality stone that breaks easily. This killer was always counting on this. At that moment they think to themselves that this is not so bad. Now he is confident that he can withstand a fight against an awakened rank, since his physical abilities are quite high, and at this point he believes that it is time to finish with the test. Sonda laughs at this, that this guy must be going crazy with despair. Hin asks if he knows why he wanted them to meet, but Sonda doesn't hear. Consider it just chatter until he releases the predator and says that he wanted his skill. Sonda can't believe how such evil mana can exist. This bastard has been hiding it all this time. However, even with this skill, he won't be able to do anything if he doesn't see it. Thane says that he told him that all skills have a weakness, and that includes his. He of course understood after eating monsters. Yes, among the monsters, many of them escaped his sight, but not a single one of the monsters could escape from the predator. He hunted them mercilessly, so now no, it doesn't matter where he is, just like the predator has already caught his scent. Sonda can only scream when the skill touches him and tears him into pieces and takes his skill for himself. The morning finally comes, but not for everyone. It is joyful at this time. Su lies in front of the giant, defeated and waits of his death. He could have done something, but it seems even the invincible warrior cannot evade death. A giant ogre is approaching him, ready to take his life, but when he hits the ground, Hens is no longer there, since you are Hin, using his invisibility skill, saves him. And when everything finally ends, Hin and John return home where their uncle and aunt are waiting for them, who are very happy to see them both in health because they thought that something bad happened, because when they came home everything was turned upside down. But Jane assures them that nothing significant happened, on which Tak cannot confirm this but also refute it. It also becomes known in the news that from the moment the warning about the danger of breaking the gate was lifted, the government closed the school for a week, as there is a possibility of subsequent outbreaks. Relatives and spouses breathed a sigh of relief. Chiv news about survivors born managed to survive in this nightmare is still in the hospital, and the school nurse tells the police how she suddenly ended up in this place. Ends surrounded by the attention of reporters, announces that he didn't kill the giant ogre. The real hero is someone else who has a true heart despite this good news. The corpse, wow, still no trace of the villain who was reported to have attacked the public, is still unknown. These people are worried that the government's security measures may not be sufficient. Hin watches all this on his phone, and since he heard enough, finishes watching the news. He did it because wanted to know if there was any information about him, but there is none, so he is happy. But now it's time for him to move to the next level. He opens the stats window, which shows that he now has 3 skills. One of them is stealth, which was really useful. But with his current powers, it is difficult for him to use all 3 sciences at the same time. If he attacks recklessly, then he will spend all his mana in no time. If he also receives the effect of the fatigue status, his life may also end. The best measure that can be taken against this are potions that can restore both mana and fatigue respectively. However, they're not so easy to get because they are quite rare and cost a lot of money, so he has to hunt to earn that money. But there is one thing, to hunt in dungeons you need to have a legal hunting permit. Even to use Nax you need a permit, otherwise it is considered illegal. Because of this, the only way out is to clear the unexplored dungeon. When he goes into the dungeon, the Spider Sisters Byron wonder how a humble man found them, how many of their logos were pretty well hidden, but no matter how he found them, they paralyze him with poison and get enough of his blood. Hin is surprised that they are smart enough to speak, but they are only of no rank. That is not enough for him to change his rank. With just a few, he needs to eat hundreds. The sisters thought that this man is not aware of the situation he was in. Unison, they spit balls of web at him to immobilize him, but when the attack hits Henna, he just smiles. And how much web is this affect the predator? has developed all the negative effects imposed on him. They are surprised. The next moment the predator deals with them, their creepy burning passage into the dungeon. Henna absorbs them and gets a new skill paralysis. In the new association of players of South Korea, some pretty important people are having a meeting behind closed doors with the deputy manager of South Korea players Goth and Wook. He cannot imagine that when meeting with two of the best players in the association this semester, the player is essentially an awakened player who is legally allowed to use his skills for various purposes, such as exploring the abyss, clearing dungeons, and so on. Currently time there are 5 gaming centers of the new association of players of South Korea, the largest Korean gaities, 4 great Guidus fighters, indivisible masters, alchemists, magic wizards, informants, night walkers, and an authorized agency managing the players, including the 4 great Guidus, the new association of players of South Korea. And right in front of him sit 2 wonderful players, Master Gilly of the Night Vagabonds, and a player with the rank chairman of the new Players Association of South Korea. He asks the girl if she learned anything about the Giddy of Villains. Glaya Villains is a criminal organization of glory created by the most cruel villains. Members of the Giddy note golden rings with red skulls denoting tribute. She hands him the documents containing information about the movements of this guide, as well as a list of players they are targeting. But she is sure that he did not call her just for the sake of this document, so what did he really need? He chuckles and says that, in fact, he is asking her a question. When did she pass test on the player? A little embarrassed, she of course, when she reached the qualifying age of 19, and the chairman just don't say at this moment. The chairman grinned and asked, can a high school student fight a monster? At this moment, Fian, who defeated everyone in this unknown dungeon, now has a backpack full of precious stones. He's calling the alchemists because he wants to buy some potions from them. Well,
order to close the 7-day school came to an end. In the days when he acted, Hin was engaged in physical training, defending the dungeon, and of course purchasing a potion from the alchemist guide. When he first brought them a batch of stones, they were shocked by the huge number of them, and immediately began to treat him like a Persian. So in this way he was able to get a lot of Zais. Besides all this, his stats also increased a little, but his rank is still with him. He has a long way to go, but unfortunately he still needs to go to school. There are rumors about him at school that he recently awakened, but that's not the most important thing. Alone from Anoklasniki says that he has huge problems due to the fact that he knocked KSU and his guys half to death, which means that this person Lee Jen Jae will definitely appear, and just at that moment he enters the class. The reason why they are so afraid of him is the fact that he is awakened from the rank, and he is also the child of the San Gru in the 3rd generation who sponsors this school, and on top of everything else he is the boss of all the hooligans here. He is the same bastard who ordered the KSU to mock him because he was not awakened. Lin says, no, long time no see buddy. HN asks again that I'm your friend, don't bet, __. Get lost. One of Jeej's henchmen asks how dare he talk to him like that non-crat with his blow, and asks if he's blind. Didn't he see that they had a damn conversation? And after which he turns to Taehyung. They say that he understands that he can think that he is strong and came out of the mud because he defeated Hiksu. However, he should be more careful since he is clearly not at the level to talk to him like that. Hin feels the increasingly burning mana. What is really surprising but only makes him think what will happen if this ability meets with a predator. Before Hin uses his ability, a classmate walks and stops J&J. This girl's name is Mayeon. She also says that Kim Hin also graduated. She also has a lot of titles: prefect, rich girl, stepsister, Yeon awakened from the class, exemplary student, the most promising nobility guys, future player of SSS rank, has not so many nicknames and will have even more. But there is one problem with her, and it is that she does not compromise at all and never gives in. She tells her that there should be no, because she understood that the 2 awakened ones were just talking. It was just a conversation between friends. She asks her friends in surprise. She notices that there was nothing friendly in what she saw, because he just hit and watches the tone. How much? She said enough. To which she answers him, what if he goes on his own? Then she will help him leave. So he must give up everything. And even now, while she is still in a good mood, he thinks to himself that if this continues, the whole class will turn into a mixture of yes and flame. But after Jen Jae or Mayeon are thrown on each other's death glares, Jinji decides to leave since he's not going to fight in this place anyway. It was a trick. At the same time, he turns around and tries to attack Lee Mayeon, noting that he won't allow himself to be treated so disrespectfully. Before his ability reaches its target, he is interrupted by the school speaker starting to speak. There is a special announcement from the club broadcast. The Players Association has organized a special lecture in the main hall, so all the students are expected to come there immediately. As Toko Jae heard this, he rethinks his actions and looks at Lyman, who is still ready to fight. He smiles and leaves, says that they are definitely lucky. He loudly slams the door behind him. Does Mayan turn to Hena and ask if they sat down with something out of order? He's already there, and there's no sign of him. When he's standing in front of the door, he notes that they should go too. How long are we talking about here? Players Association. Lyman knocked down the table. KO. Has he always been like this? In the main hall, the students wonder why the Players Association is here, and some assume that it is because of the quarry. In the end, the lecture begins with the GC first introducing himself. He says that today he is here for two reasons. Of them, sorry for the lack of response to the breakthrough of the gate, since they reacted quickly enough, and the Sekonto inform about changes in the selection of players for those of them who have awakened and will become the future of this country. Jen Seka is angry with Hena. Ali Man thinks that later it will be necessary to find out Kimon. In this moment of carefree yawns, all the other students are wondering what this has to do with them. What time does player selection begin? At the age of 19. After that, too says that they are right, but due to the recent gate breach and the increase in the number of monster dungeons, the player organization has become understaffed. With the mind of this, from now on they decide carry out a selection even among high school students. The students are pleasantly surprised by this. Thus, continuing candidates from each school will be selected on the basis of some factors in their assessment of ability, academic performance, and behavior. Hena on the face at this moment a smile appears, because what this guy is now saying is a lie. This exam, it's true that high school students can pass it, but the selection itself has already begun, and no one knows anything about it. It happens in secret with the help of the skill voice of the observer, which rises above 7, and no one notices this skill. It is able to quantify the amount of SI Sukta when focusing the user to view the window of characteristics of the corresponding goals. Secretly viewing the strength of students. Goth VK notices this school will definitely give better results than other schools. They will all become excellent players, but even among all of them, these two are the brightest with a score, or mine with a score of 235 this night. He was given a list of recommending their people to check, but he can't believe that there are so many strong players. He will have to write a letter of recommendation. As soon as he returns to the Lige Association, suddenly raises his hand up and notes that if there are unawakened here, to stay here, because the selection is meant to evaluate the awakened, not only his strength, of course, the rank awakened by situations, extensive knowledge of the abyss. All these complex abilities are sure to get the right to become a player, but in the end the primary difficulty lies in awakening. Therefore the unawakened one has nothing to do here. Right at this moment, many glances are directed at the tech and laugh at him, and in himself the tech thinks to push such a speech only in order to find out whether he is awakened or not. He does exactly this because he wants to find out himself whether HN is waiting or not. Lyman is trying to make her stop, but at this moment the thought appears in her head that HN will say that he does not need her help. So she decides not to interfere at this moment. GUC answers, I understand what this student was talking about, attending this lecture. Then from you after that, Anja turns around again and says, isn't he ashamed? I note that he won't be able to get recommendations as he is not awakened. That's right. But X doesn't pay much attention to his words because he does, and it is necessary to prove that he is awakened for him. Novagoka in this spendthrift thinks a simple who has his rank and decides to check Hena in the bed. He just felt sorry for him. But I direct my skill to Hena. A notification is displayed to him that it is impossible to confirm the status of the bow, in great confusion because such a didn't happen before. Parallel to this, Hen answers, I'm really narrow-minded. What's the use of listening to this information for the unsettled? It will immediately hit your pride. After this, Techen pathetically leaves the hall. AGTVK tries to comprehend the situation. My observer's gaze did not work on either the president of the association or the leader guild, and this did not happen while on this hill. He tries to use the skill Snow again until he finally sees the terrifying stats. Hena 596 HN goes to the library to read more books and find out everything possible about the king. At this moment the thug Lee Jen J comes and says should he go with them since the boss is looking for him. HN asks what will happen if he refuses. The thug is threatening HN to destroy his aunt's restaurants. This is direct what Jeej tell him, so he must understand him correctly. He is an orphan HSH is he, making the life of his aunt even more difficult with his behavior. POS this HN goes berserk instantly to hit one of the hooligans and completely destroys the library. He holds one hooligan by the throat, aka he is choking. Tachyon says don't make me repeat twice, whereas that bastard Lijin Jae where he hin comes to the gym where you are Lijin Jae and the hunter. And rank Sol Hun the bodyguard is trying to use a stat reduction on NM, but his skill doesn't work. Why does the bodyguard conclude that he has minimal wounds? The bastard says you actually woke up. If this is so, then we should talk as friends, right? I have an offer from which you are definitely you won't refuse. After graduation I am going to form a giddy Kodo will become, but even a genius like me can't do anything, you understand? I need personnel, not losers like expert, truly talented ones like you. Now Kim, you are young, so you should forget about your old grievances and work under my command, and I will make your family rich. But without hesitation for a second X he answers in his repertoire, Lijin Jae, with your threats against my aunt you cross the line. At this moment Liz Hen thinks that dogs need to show their place and activate their ND's bodyguard skill activates the barrier that the school didn't know about. Their battle and a fierce skirmish begins. Arnie exchanges a series of crushing blows, but HN loses ground. His stone skin skill is not comparable in rank to the Lijin skill. The bodyguard reflects that with the skills of Taken it is unlikely that he can find his equal, but today is another day. Today's battle, in it he will be defeated by the master. But as the battle progresses, the technologist is drawn in and begins to push Lijin Jae. The guard is shocked that it can't be used. Send off the master. Lijin is also in shock. He cannot even move at this moment. He understands everything, that the science of technology not limited to just armor, and the tech himself thinks it finally worked out. The tech has 3 skills, but he couldn't use them all from the very beginning, since paralysis of rank C cannot easily pass through resistance from rank stealth will be easily swept away by his flame, and a predator cannot use so carelessly, so that the real purpose of the technique all along was to inflict paralysis, which has a greater effect when inflicted in close combat. In other words, if paralysis is inflicted several times with continuous blows, then even the opponent's resistance at the rank level will not be able to withstand such a number of effects. Ligon admits that he is really strong. He also gives his all. Breaking some kind of crystal, he activates his strongest. From this moment the real battle will begin. Lin begins to furiously attack. Hina Hin can't do anything to counter this, so he just runs away to dodge counterattack. His attack bumps into fire, the shield, and dissipates, and San takes damage and flies to the side at the moment of thought of the master's action, saying that it would be difficult to fully use the master's skill SS rank Fiery Heart, but before using the skill, he used Crystal Enhancement, a product of their company. But there is one problem. The bodyguard asks the master, stop, is the gentleman really going to kill this little guy? Besides, this is a magical power for too much, you can't handle it. I'll almost burst all your blood vessels due to the leakage of magical energy. But Liz Hen doesn't listen to him and tells him to shut up like he's a simple bodyguard dares to give me orders. Especially since HN humiliated him, so he has to get even with him. Liz Hen directs this crushing power Nana's mixture, and say die MHN. The bodyguard thinks that Jen has already completely lost his mind and tells Henna to run. He will somehow try to stop his master. Runs up to Henna and holds out his hand, but HN gives him soil, to run. He was the first to start a fight. Of course I admit that it's completely different. I'll also become myself. At this moment HN quickly drinks a potion that restores her fatigue stamina Mano, and we are transported to the association building. TK reports to the president about the power of the awakened, and the president is surprised. 1900 2300 This is the truth, confirms his words. They are awakened from the rank. The assistant is surprised even if they have a rank, but how can they even without training have 1900 points? This is already comparable to hunters in level. Isn't this the level of the Japanese saint they will finally be able to throw? And the challenge of the saint is one of the leading players in Japan. She happened 2500 at the age of 19, but even such a monster can't be compared with this guy. 596 points. When he leaves the head's office he still can't understand this situation. Was it a hallucination, a skill error, or anything else? He must find out everything personally. The bodyguard cannot believe. How are you doing this? At this moment they suppress the NN skill until the last moment. Can they believe how such trash as he can withstand his rank? He is the strongest. To which he replies yes. I don't care what do you have the strength of SS rank, or are you the heir of someone there, after all? I have the strength of the king at this moment. The henna skill is directed to Legion, which causes a huge explosion in the gymnasium of the school in Rui, but X didn't expect such a situation. Bodyguard Solhong pulled Len out from under him attacks. However, henna, it's still early, it's because he already took Jen's no. But then the bodyguard begins to say what you're doing. Do you even understand that my master is an ass? Do I look like a person who would be frightened by something like that? But don't worry, I'm not going to kill him anyway. Well then, and here HN starts to engage in extortion. Since your master, the heir of NG, shouldn't get 1 billion for him. Everyone from the school gathers around the gym, or Mayan finds out that this flame and mana belong to Jen J. She also believes that he knocked poor Taehyung half to death, so she passes by the nurse and runs towards the gym. She says that she was mistaken because it is her fault that she did not check the gym. In her thoughts, she asks Kim Hyun to he survived, but in the run of his gym, she was stunned by what happened. He says, well, you came on time. I just needed a witness, that is, no, I don't need someone to transfer him into himself. She asks what happened here, to which he answers as stupidly as possible, I saw that he lives here alone. Maybe he fell down the stairs or something like that, she's thinking in her thoughts. He fell down the stairs while leaving. Kim Tech asked her not to tell anyone about this at school. She's trying to find out about Tech. What's it all about? Happened, but when she looks at him, he has already disappeared after leaving the school. MHN finds himself far from the school, thinking to himself that he will somehow take care of Legion J and the NGP will also not pester. The issue is approximately resolved, yes. But opening his status window, he is surprised by him. The charm parameter has appeared. He doesn't understand where Idavan came from. Did this happen because he absorbed the skill of Colin J? And besides, the acquired skill is not called a fiery heart, but the heart of a monarch increases the abilities of group members. But this is even a good skill that affects the entire group, is rare regardless from their level, and since Henna has several skills and can combine them, the heart of the monarch is much better than the fiery heart. But then Henna's leisurely walk is interrupted by the GOC. He comes to the big car cartel and says that he has some questions for Imtech, and the first question is, what have you done in gym? But we are not destined to hear the answer to this question in this chapter. We are transported in the cabin of the distinguished Su-Dad Legion J and the general director of the NGP. He is also a rank hunter. He talks with the bodyguard and he tells him not only that my son is in the hospital. So whose I had to pay compensation for his life is 1 billion, and therefore no matter how much we pay we are obliged to receive compensation, for which the bodyguard is trying to stop the director because the young master's opponent was not a young boy at all, but he doesn't listen to him and tells him to stop because he didn't allow the dog to bark well. At this moment, thoughts are flying through Kim Taehyung's head of what he is doing here. He is the deputy manager of the guide. The likelihood that he will personally visit the scene of the incident is damn small. But what if he is here? Because he knows that Kim Taehyung is the culprit of the incident. But in this case he has to find out the truth. Does he know that he is the culprit of the incident? Why does he ask him? Does he mean the explosion of the mining and processing plant? Was confused at first, but then he noticed the fire behind them. Probably it was his doing, but everything is fine. Other agencies, hurry up, there is no need to worry about it. TK continues. After all, he didn't get a straight answer what exactly he was doing in the gym. He smiles because it seems like he finally got caught in his net. He asks, you don't know yet, but you have to be here to give me an invitation to the selection of players. Laughing, ready to answer yes. On what basis is he even talking about the selection of players? But Yoo-hin answers that in that case he will show you his basis. Hin releases his strength and shows the indicator 5214 and satirically asks the question, this is not enough. Jiusi is shocked, but it can't be. He has become even stronger during these hours. This means that the number that he sees at school is not a coincidence. Kim Hyun really has enormous power. Before asking the next serious question, Taehyung can focus on physical training. At this moment his cousin enters Kim Taehyung's room, who only recently found out that Kim Taehyung will take the exam for the role of a hunter, and he immediately begins to exalt Hyun's MTY King God General Emperor Your Majesty Kim Hin on what, and in turn Taekyon responds in his repertoire, are you kidding me? Meanwhile on the street near the house of Taehyung, the killer sent by close group deals with the hunters of the association and thinks to himself, why the house of the brat from high school is guarded by hunters pissing off VRO of the killers makes the assumption that this is because XN is participating in hunter exam after all. This is how the association takes care of its rising stars. Roy asks the rising star, but he's just a brat with little experience, isn't he? These two thugs are killers of the rank of black and white brother with stealth skill. After the words of the white brother, he replies that yes, that's even true if this is a promising hunter without sufficient experience. He is nothing, and we will show everyone what the real awakened brother is. At this moment, the Hin appears behind the back of the black brother and attacks the white brother with a series of short blows. Quickly reacted to what is happening, the black brother is furious and attacks Kim Taehyung along the way. I ask who he is. What does he say? Turning around, he asks, Yato again. And at the same moment, Kim Taehyung's knee flies into the head of the black brother, completely breaking his face. Along the way, he answers the question, I'm your small fry with no experience. And we are transported a few hours ago to the moment when the Guardian talked to me. He burns that even if he keeps silent about the incident, it's not up to him to decide. He alone, our main character, replies that it's understandable who doesn't know about it at all. He's not such a bad person to attract his subordinates to his father. Rosto asks the bodyguard to do everything possible to reach an agreement. But in case betrayal, he uses his ability Lotto ability contract created awaken using magical power. In case of violation is imposed eternal random fine. The conditions are simple. The first, along with the requested compensation of 1 billion. Make every effort to notice the incident in the gym, and the second condition is that SL Hondo handed over to Kim Hena information about the killers that Tae-san group sends to his head, and this moment has just come. The bodyguard calls Kin to report on the characteristics of the killers who were sent by Techno. The black killer turns out to be quite a tough nut to crack and continues to fight even after receiving a critical hit from KM Tech. She is our main character easily. So he dodges the black one and counterattacks. But in turn, the black killer is also not a miss and dodges Kim Tech, ending up behind him. Trying to carry out a quick attack, he falls into the trap of Techno and already Tech. He ends up behind him and our main character gives up in the end. Apparently this is all that you are capable of. Meanwhile, you are calmly driving in the car X. He asks a question. She heard that the selection for the hunter exam is already over and asks the question, who is the chairman waiting for there? Probably Shin Bak and Busan Go, to which the chairman answers X, who knows, of course he is great, but in fact, I'm waiting for your younger brother, of course, which he argues with. Yes, what is my younger brother, since in this family he can achieve something? The traitor declares that she is too picky as always and asks the question, who is she waiting for in turn? A guy named Shinbak, to which he replies that you haven't heard of him yet, but he's quite interesting. The chairman asks interestedly, interesting, to which he replies, in addition to their high-ranking aces, I hear that there is a guy who was personally approached by the deputy. The deputy of the GOC is even more surprised, curious, isn't that true? Is engaged in these two, but again he is unable to use the predator skill. He wonders, hey, why is this so again? To which a sign is displayed for him about the lack of physical capabilities due to overload. Using the predator is impossible after that. The disappointed HN called the Association of Hunters. They argued among themselves that it was not enough that the blacks and the white brothers are annoying the hunters of the association. Now the Kursk Dashas have dropped to thanks Hena for reporting this incident and asks if HN knows who is behind this. In turn, HN dodges the question and answers that no, he doesn't know. He's thinking maybe the list of those who pro-selection was revealed and thinks that he will have to call for reinforcements in order to sort out the situation. HN, in turn, is thinking about the fact that he should not have accused the NGP in vain. Because instead of hushing up the situation, he would have only gotten a bunch of problems, and also the tone of the group is not a priority at all now. Now it is vital for him to understand with his skill. He thinks that he will have to develop his physical abilities even more. But in what ways can he not use a predator on a monster to increase his awaken level? Because this is a necessary skill, and by this analogy, he cannot use a predator on a awakened Drakem Dam. And what should he do then? For something Yuhin finds only one way out, the training hall. He goes there with Xenum and finds them met by a beautiful woman who thinks schoolchildren and hurry up that they have a training center here for something. EX don't listen to her, shows her a gold card and asks enough. This woman is very surprised. This is the card. one of the 4 largest guides, the alchemist's sweep card. She is in a difficult situation. Where did he get this card from? Is he a relative of a high-ranking alchemist, or the owner? But if she makes the payment, if she just might have problems, and she is wondering how should she be at this moment. Laughing, one of the musclemen doesn't approach. I note that it looks like Ms. Euro has a dilemma, and turning to someone, Henna baby, this is not the place where you can enter, just pay and money. The woman is even more confused. The strongest Mr. Conk. It turns out that this is Coach Byron, the strongest Kanchal Dick B killer of beginners. He also has the skills to strengthen the mouse, which is remarkable. He developed himself and, as always, in shock. The strongest Mr. Cahal. This is such a cool name. In turn, think in front of him, and what kind of name is so stupid? Is he crazy? Everyone is discussing the appearance of Kanchal, and he talks about Henna. See how everyone is trembling when they hear my name. HN, in his arrogant manner, replies that this weak Brad is stretching a lot. What is the? Kanchal asks again what he said. The solution to this situation is a dispute. If the Kanchal loses, he will pay membership, where for 1 year. Well, Sozum, who left, everyone finished, answers that he agrees, and they move to a game called Virtual Rapist. The essence of this game is that you must carry the maximum weight, defeat the maximum number of monsters B, and get to the destination in the shortest possible time in a virtual reality completely identical to the Abyss. To which the woman notes that this is the most effective way when it comes to fighting in the training center, but it is too disadvantageous in relation to the opponent of the strongest. After all, I'm looking forward to my victory because his skill is ideally tailored for this game. Muscle enlargement Kodo, he can lift beyond the bounds of imagination, and he also has increased strength and agility. He is simply ideally created for this game, but something attracts her attention. HN with incredible speed rushes through the pillars of monsters, destroying one after another without stopping at anything. Knocking out combo 999X leaves the Kanchal in shock, say that he still planned the visit for only 30 days, but it must be because of the maximum weight. The training went well. Turning around, he says, the strongest Kanchal, your name was well. The argument was complicated. Now pay and get out here. To a skip occurs, and we are transported a month ahead to the place where the hunters' name exam is being held, and now they are just announcing its beginning. And another announcement, since this year the Hunters Association announced that minors were also invited to participate on the recommendation of people of all ages from this country, flocking here in the testing center of the association. And the most anticipated hunters is Seiya, who has no equal in close combat. KN Niran, the owner of an excellent combat sense, who cannot sing even the ranks of the druid Gal San Aaron, who has no competitors. Busan the thunderous Shinbok with a rank of such. There are rumors that she has the highest score, what of giving a rising star of the level of Saint Ch. Next, a large number of talented people are planning to take part in this EXO. One of the reporters is very upset that there is a huge line in front of her, and if she does a new report, she got out of work, but from such a distance she can't even take a photo. Well, of course, what can my Aaron? My life is ruined at this moment. HN passes behind his back. He grumbles that there are so many people here, and how in any case will the participants be able to get through. She grabs this at least tiny chance and begs Hyun for the date of the interview. Well, that's it for today, we have everything. The girl tells Kim Taehyung that there is only 1 minute left before the exam starts, to which Kim Taehyung replies that he was almost late for the sudden interview. After which Kim Taekyeon passes the hall where all the awakened ones are gathered. He meets the headman, and she, in turn, wonders what happened to his body. He has grown so much. To her question, he answers that he just trained a little, and the headman thinks about say. This is what he calls a little. Their conversation is interrupted by the sudden start of the exam. The man explains to them the rules of the exam. They need to collect 5G, including theirs, if theirs is not available. Then they do not pass the time allocated for this exam, about an hour. All methods are allowed except murder, so the exam begins. The space, the circle of Nisi veto changes, and all participants are not in the know, but they quickly find their bearings and go to attack Nei Mao from rank, but she deals with all the attackers and examiners, and one new thing, they praise her skills as well. With the rest of us, testing does not stand out in any way. All of them surpass the skills of the previous test participants. But there is one person who is not particularly expected. God bless the rank from Busan. Over the past 20 minutes of the test, no one has been able to get close to him. He figured out the family of topics. Meanwhile, on the other side, Goto says that their interest is understandable given the scores, But he saw the number as much more interesting Kim Taehyung. He is sure that he will easily pass the test and show them all, and at that moment he notices how Taehyung is fighting with the awakened Aaron Hong number. They are fighting, exchanging blows equally. And then UVK begins to panic. Has he really been fooled by a recently awakened man in class? But then he notices that MHN did not evade a single blow from the born Aaron Han Nook. This means that he is challenging him. And the awakened one himself notices this. Ideally back-compatible iron skin skill. But here Kim Taehyung's plan is finally revealed to us. Even after a month of hard training, he was unable to unlock his predator skill. This means that his ability is still not enough. The way to increase performance through training is to provide the maximum stimulation that the body can handle. Means that ultimately training is a fight to the limit, so his training is still not over, and at that moment he wins and takes the second token. He laughs and says, "Of course you are crazy." He also understood Kim Taehyung's plan, but there is one big problem in this battle: he used up too much stamina. Now he will have to take care of it. So the best thing would be to collect the badges of the week. But this is not in the spirit of Yuhyuna, and he goes to the awakened rank of Shin Bak, who now owns Jai in the amount of all these things. This amazes all the examiners. Meanwhile, Taekyon considers his troubles and says X is much more than 5, and a fierce battle begins in the Henlith from many lightning bolts. But he dodges each and tries to strike the irradiated leg into the stone skin. But his blow does not reach the target. Hin did not expect that with the Thunderer and Busan Shin sideways will be so difficult for lightning thunderbolts to envelop his entire body, performing both a defensive and offensive function. They can also be used to attack. The Predator still can't use it, and he's trying to come up with a plan on what to do in this situation, but they don't give him time for free thinking. The Thunderer delivers a direct blow from which X dodges. A series of blows from the Thunderer follows, but one of the attacks reaches his body. He is struck by a high-voltage lightning strike at the limit of his capabilities. Taehyung uses the stone skin skill on his hand, creating something like a hammer, and attacks the Thunderer. But this attack can hardly cause damage to him. It disintegrates like a lightning strike in an instant, repelling M-Tech. The Thunderer counterattacks with an incredibly strong attack that destroys everything in its path, and Hina is also not weak. The fact that everyone else was busy running away from him, he thought that only Mayeon would dare to challenge him. But Kim Yoo-hin is also a very interesting toy. And then Shinbok flies into the stone that MHN Shinbok threw. He was confused. No attack of this couple could affect him, but TMKHN appears behind him and throws another stone that causes very significant damage to Shin's side. Ravitz reflects that of course stone skin cannot resist the wrath of the Thunder God even if it goes beyond its limits. But the examination hall is a different matter. It was originally created from a material that is able to withstand the power of the awakened properties of its properties, so it can be used as a weapon to defeat the God of Thunder, and at that moment MHN flies out at him with a huge piece of the hall in his hand, and Su with a grin on his face inflicts a crushing attack on Shin's side. All the examiners are shocked as the rank defeated SNG. The awakened GOC thinks to himself, makes MKHN nervous. MKHN himself, holding Boji in his hands, thinks that now he has all the badges and all that remains is to wait for the end of the exam. But then an ice block flies at him. MKHN is surprised by LD, but look around, he notices whether Mayeon has the ability, and then she appears right in front of him and heads towards him. He is amazed. She continues to walk in his direction with an icy gaze. He tries to comprehend the situation as she did now from since when she watches the battle, and then she begins to read morals from Techno UC with great power comes great responsibility, and power without responsibility is just violence. She didn't expect that Kin would be able to defeat Kin. Boka MKHN is trying to find out why he so suddenly launched an attack on him. But she doesn't pay attention to him and continues her monologue with visible whines. So you defeated Licking, and at that very moment a hail of snow bombs is falling. Kim Min is trying to figure out what to do, how to evade the attack, but all his methods are useless. Even if he goes into invisibility, it won't help. After all, Lyman's attack is aimed at the square, but then she herself interferes with the hail of her blows, and she says Mtek that he believed him then in the gym. She is not like those guys. But in the end JKSU did it. Kim Yoo-hin, she attacks him with a huge ice spire. Kim Taek flies away from such a powerful attack and falls to the ground without strength. She continues, the unauthorized use of skills is a crime. Those guys are still in the hospital. But something must have happened to him too. Therefore, I will not file a complaint. How stupid she is. However, you should refrain from taking the Atom exam as you are not qualified to be a hunter. But Kim Taehyung, he is not such a simpleton. Through pain and fatigue he melts, and does Mayeon respond to her match the unstoppable tyrant Lee Jin-jae? He has the strength, responsibility, qualifications. In the end you just want to mock me. Better use the survival test as an excuse. Won't Mayeon be a coward in shock from the impudence of Kim Tana and decides to no longer show mercy to him, and uses the ability to summon a giant ice hammer, and says that he will finish off the KM Tech with one blow. But even such a strong hero as UXN is not in a difficult situation right now. His stone skin has broken hundreds of times and has long spent its function. Stealth will not help because my attack is aimed at a huge area. The monarch's heart has been activated for a long time and will not help either. The predators are still in a sealed state, and also the takeaway is at 0, and he will not be able to activate paralysis in close combat as the Sleen did. After all, what is he now? Maybe it's heading to Klee Mayeon. He scrolls through this thought all in his head, and then a flash occurs, eclipsing the view of all spectators. What happened to the battle? No one understands, but then the curtain of the battle begins to dissipate, and everyone sees an amazing sight. Kim, did you kiss Mayeon? All from this shocked, and Yeon herself is even more bewildered. But this is not what you might think about, my lustful viewers. In fact, in a desperate moment, Kim Taehyung sought to impose paralysis on Lee Mayeon, because paralysis works much better at close range and when it acts not from the outside but immediately penetrates inside. That is why Kim Taehyung mixed his blood with poison and forced man to swallow it. But even so, there was still a chance of failure because the Iranian woman has monstrous resistance. But this adventure was a success, or Mayeon lies helplessly paralyzed in his own snow. Kim Hen thinks that this is a success, and then announces about the end of the first stage of the exam. The healers treated the participants who had suffered serious injuries despite the fact that Lehman was affected by paralysis. Kim Yoo-hena, and she lost to him. She still passed the exam, and Kim himself was a technician despite the fact that he collected all the badges. Victory over Shin Buk or Mayeon reforged everyone's attention to him. So everyone rushed in that it would be nice to have a healing skill in his arsenal, because after the exam he could even walk with difficulty. But then Shin Bak jumped out from around the corner, attacking him with the words "cowardly bastard Kin," and managed to block attack with the help of his stone skin skill. The crowd thinks that if Shin Bak deals with some chi, then there will be one less candidate for Shin, and therefore they begin to support Bak's hairpiece. But he doesn't like this very much, and he uses his lightning and tells Kin that let's do it, fight honestly, and now he will show who is in charge here. But at this moment the hunter Anga Paksa interrupts their battle using his typing skill Shinboka in the ground. Kim barely manages to stand on his feet. Kim Taek is amazed that such a strong hunter of the association is doing here. He is the future SSS rank. Pak Sungji notices Kim Taehyung and is amazed that he is still standing on his feet, and he strengthens the influence of Snow Ion Kim Taehyung. But even so, Kim Taehyung does not bend his knee in front of him. AK Sajin is surprised because even veterans are not able to withstand this ability, and he is going to strengthen it even more, the pressure of his strength. But then the doctor interrupts him with a question: "What do you want?" and get rid of these children even before the start of the second exam. To which Saja replies that he is just disciplining them. But the doctors don't believe him and says that if he does this one more time, he will force to report to the president of the association. After which Paksuji turns to our main character asking his name, to which the answer follows: "My name is Kim Yoo-hin, a hunter of rank." Immerses with Dumi. If this is definitely MKHN, then he will beat Shink Island with his rank. And then a grin flashes across his face, and he thinks that finally someone interesting has appeared, clapping Kim Hena on the shoulder. He tells him that of course your goal is to become a hunter of rank, and he will really look forward to it. Leave and chase him after this humorous scene. We are transported to the second stage of the exam where Park Sejin explains its rules. He announces that the location of the second stage is a dungeon de rank. Everyone is in shock. After all, they have never seen real monsters before, and Park Seo-jin continues to explain the rules. Every 5 test subjects form a team accompanied by an experienced hunter during this stage. Each of their actions will be assessed for their battle skills, observation, wisdom, and mutual assistance. All necessary equipment will be provided by the Hunters Association. So this is the end of the explanations. Now everyone will take turns going through the gates and reflects that even inexperienced amateurs there won't be any difficulties with a D-rank dungeon if an experienced hunter joins. That's only if it's not a double dungeon. Apocalypse is a dungeon with a rank discovered inside a D-rank dungeon, the location of the second stage for a hunter's license. Many people in that dungeon were killed, including Rue. But now no one will believe his words, so he thinks that unless he ends up in the first group, just surviving will be enough, and relaxed, he enters the portal. But his face immediately distorts because in front of him he sees the second overseer of the hunter. Rana Yeri of the double dungeon Apocalypse, and to himself Kim Yoo-hin think that things already smell fried. The first monster they meet on their way is mud golems. They rush at them to attack by combining their forces and easily deal with them. Their curator praises them and says that it's amazing that they have excellent combat sense, and that considering that this is their first battle they cope just great. They embarrassedly answers him that no doubt it's all about his excellent command. But meanwhile Hen thinks, damn, there are so many teams. And I'm in the first team. And this sorcerer is definitely wearing the item that the discoverer of the Apocalypse dungeon wore, the Ring of the Sage. And this situation forces Tachyon is thinking about how to survive because the Devourer is still sealed and he will not be able to survive if a double dungeon is discovered. So he decides to prevent the opening of the Apocalypse by any means. And then they encounter a fork in their path. The test subject is asked what they should do. How to determine the road. The sorcerer answers that this often happens when exploring the dungeons, so now they will vote and the decision of the majority of Rome from the decision on which road they should take. But Kim has a new opinion and the fact that he will not allow them and will pave them a different path than in his time. To avoid the opening of the Apocalypse, he tells them to follow him. But unfortunately the fate of Kim is technical and plays a cruel joke on him. No matter how he goes around the main route, he still comes to the portal in the double dungeon of the Apocalypse. Moss says that he will go and check. But Kim Yui-chen shouts to them, stop, don't you see, we have already entered the brother dungeon and here is another one. This is not normal. Such unusual cases must be reported immediately, isn't it, Mr. Sorcerer? But most likely the sorcerer wants to survive today. So he rejects Kim Tech's proposal and answers him that the magic emanating from these gates is not so strong and he is still a hunter of rank, and if they investigate the first case of the appearance of such a gate, they will definitely receive the highest score. And he decides to enter the gate. Hyung tries to restore it in every way, but persuasion does not work and in the end they enter the dungeon. The test subject is immediately surprised that this Drang dungeon is somehow strange in front of them. There stands a huge hall of many columns, shrouded in red haze, and in front of them stands an incomprehensible form of a knight with a huge black sword and a nip above his head. The subject asks about the sorcerer. We are really in the Drang dungeon. To which he himself is surprised and could not give an intelligible answer. And then Kinto Hai begins command everyone to shut up and keep their eyes open. They are trying to object to him. Why did Tersnow start to be rude? But he doesn't listen to them and says that they are already coming. At that moment 2 knights appear in front of them and they are clearly unfriendly. It turns out to be Orango monsters, Death Knights. The sorcerer in a panic, he tells everyone preparing for battle. In the meantime, the Death Knights are already beginning their attack. Fortunately, our test subjects were lucky enough to dodge the first attack. Ice immediately counterattacks and his attack seems to reach the enemy. Everyone begins to use their abilities to the maximum. Attack the Death Knights, giving their best because their lives are at stake, and they defeat these 2 Death Knights. They are clouded with pride. They begin to rejoice in their victory over monsters of rank. But then a new group of monsters appears, which surprises them quite a bit and undermines their morale. Meanwhile, Kim Taehyung notices something strange. They deal with this group, but instead a new one comes to her. His also hordes of Death Knights stand in front of them. The sorcerer reflects that each defeated group of monsters is replaced by a new one and everyone is already at the limit of their capabilities. And if this continues, they will die. And then Kim Taehyung comes up to him and says that that's not the case here and most likely it's not the Death Knights. Kalm looks at him and is surprised. Even though he fought with them, he wasn't that tired. In addition, if the hearts had not been strengthened by his skill, they would have disappeared long ago. Is the MKHN really an awakened rank? But on Kion's guess doesn't answer, then who did they fight with? She be her, and then the space in which they were begins to dissipate. Everyone is surprised that it was an illusion, to which he answers the trap of illusions is a trap showing virtual enemies and places. It plays the role of weakening the attackers. LDU asks Kim Taehyung how he knew that these were illusions, and he answers him, well, I don't know myself. But I'm not that weak. This answer really strikes the sorcerer. But Kim Taehyung doesn't pay attention to this, and says that it's time to move on. Before they are all killed, they follow him. Of course the illusion has disappeared. But the situation has not improved at all. They are still there in some dungeon and are moving through a tunnel, not knowing what awaits them ahead. The injuries received in the battle with illusions are only getting worse. They have only one way out for salvation. This is to find a way out of this dungeon. And then the sorcerer discovers a huge door. The test subject asks him if it is dangerous this. But he replies that he doesn't know, but they have no choice. If they don't open it, they'll die anyway. So it's worth taking the risk. He takes away the huge door and begins to seep into a completely black room. The Death Knight appears in front of them, standing on one knee. But then the lights in the room come on and they see countless numbers of Death Knights. Fear arises in their hearts. They cannot accept that all these are Death Knights. And then the owner of the double dungeon of the apocalypse, Lord Death Knights of the rank, you insignificant people somehow got here. Then let's begin our duel. Knights Death is lined up around and one of them puts his sword forward. They don't know what's happening, but Kim Taehyung tells them that he wants a duel. These cowards start to panic and say that they can't fight anymore. Our main character tries to calm them down and says that their goal is not to fight and escape, and then they begin to run away as fast as they can. But the Death Knight quickly takes their lives. Kim Hin tells the sorcerer that he will buy time for him and that he should run. But then in turn he pushes me away and says not to contact him. No matter how much he trains or improves, he could not reach his skills even to him, but only moved away. This is his opportunity. If he deals with this case, he can become a hunter Iran, and then the battle begins. But before entering the battle, he says KMU Henna, no matter how sad it was, but you another, it's frustrating. But you have everything you need to reach SEC rank, so run, grab the wounded and carry your legs as far as possible, and I, as the overseer, will stop the death. This is my role. But Kim Taek glances at the dead and thinks about say, unfortunately, they are no longer wounded and the dead and ice could not resist the knights from the second and was defeated in the blink of an eye. Our main character is in confusion. He is in an extremely dangerous situation on the verge of life and death. The Death Knight puts his sword forward and challenges him to a duel. But then he notices a ring lying on the ground nearby with the corpse of the sorcerer. This is his only chance of salvation. He grabs the ring and puts it on his finger and prays that the predator will work. The Death Knight rushes his attacks towards Kim Taehyung. He puts on the ring. The effect of this ring increases all characteristics by 10. The seal on the predator is removed in the dungeon. He is surprised what it is for. His strength, Taek in the blink of an eye sweeps away all the Death Knights who were next to him, and the deadly dance begins with the help of a predator. Kim Taehyung can compete with a bunch of Death Knights, but absorbing a Death Knight takes 10 seconds, so he cannot rely only on the predator. He will use the skill which he collected during this time with one after another. He deals with the Death Knights. He will ruin the BC that he has. The only way he can survive. But then the owner of the dungeon attacks him with his spear and the situation rarely changes. Kim HN tries to take the predator on the owner of the dungeon, to which T replies, and you are quite strong but nothing more than that. An explosion occurs and after it we see a picture on the ground, pierced by a spear. The ruler of the dungeon finally asks him who gave him this power. But Taek is not so easy to defeat. He tries to resist the rule of a king of knight rank with the help of Nako the predator. Resistance is not it. Succeeds. But MHN continues and continues. In the meantime, the king continues his monologue and says that, unlike other people, he knows that MHN understands his speech. Therefore, he asks for an answer. What is the nature of his power? And we are transported to the subconscious of Kim Hyun, where he plays out a situation that ended in life the first time he stands in front of Asmodeus. He looks back and sees the corpses of his comrades and says that since that moment nothing has changed. He is immersed in his thoughts. What is the essence of the power of a predator? Why am I a human? Suddenly began to understand the language of monsters. I just gained strength and capabilities. I don't know anything, and with since then nothing has changed. Why the king gave me power, and then the king gives him this answer. The much desired king gave him this power simply because he was impressed by his will and perseverance. Kim Nu does not have to change, and the king of the dungeon concludes that Kim Nu simply does not. There is strength left to answer, and decides to end this meaningless conversation. But then MK Chen uses his last strength to use Novo Predator to eat all the death knights around and increase his mana. The king of the dungeon is amazed and answers Mtek perfectly. This is the last battle. Well, it's a battle to the death. He rushes to attack Mtek. She strikes with her sword, but Mtek he stops his attack with one hand and asks a counter question. Are you curious about the nature of my power? The lord of the dungeon is surprised, but our main character does not give him a moment's reflection and strikes him with his crushing power, sending him flying. He grabs one of nearby swords and begins a battle with the king of the dungeon. In turn, the king is very surprised how an insignificant human dares to do such a thing using the Nova of the Predator. Our main character creates a huge mouth that rushes towards the boss of the dungeon. He cannot understand what is happening, and Kim Hin answers him, this is not a human power, this is the power of the king, and absorbs the boss of the dungeon with his Predator NAK, and a new skill is the spirit of the king of the night. And outside the portals the examiners are also not themselves. They are trying to find out what is happening. I am measuring the level of power. The level of power is at rank C. They are panicking because the evacuation is delayed due to the deformation of the dungeon. Will they be able to reinforcements arrive before his breakthrough? The chief examiner thinks, __, about everything. Where did the magic rank come from? Underground NGD. Everyone will just die there probably for me. And then something starts to break out of the portal into the dungeon. Everyone is surprised the dungeon has broken through already. Damn, everyone be prepared before only Kim Taehyung appears. And they are all surprised. In turn, Kim Taehyung says he was barely able to return thanks to the efforts of me. The conflict was resolved without unnecessary casualties. They were calculated on the basis of the results before the evacuation was announced. Also, the bodies of the deceased were found and returned to their families at the same moment. The chief examiner of the State Customs Committee were in the office of the director of the association. He said that he did not disclose who cleared the dungeon. Apocalypse of Magi. He asked them what they didn't know about the person who completed the dungeon. From the Apocalypse class, what level should he have? The examiner answers this is someone who cleared the dungeon from the class, so the minimum must have the rank of Go-To. In turn replies that since the rank is actually much lower, it is difficult to estimate his real strength that he has. After all, the director of the association says that there is a high probability that he will become a national power. Meanwhile, Kim Taehyung sees a dream purer than monsters. He is surprised how he fell into the abyss, and then a king appears. He instantly deals with all the monsters and tells Kim Taehyung that the deepest honor of the abyss awaits him. At this point, Henna's dream is interrupted and he instantly wakes up. He wonders if it was really a dream. No, it was too real. Lust to this, the strength of a predator who fear even a C-class monster, and understanding the laws of a monster. All this becomes even more confusing for Kim Tana. He ponders, is there really no other way but for Tinato go into the abyss, and then checks his stats panel. He discovers that his rank has risen to rank B as well. He examines the rest of his characteristics and says that this level is already equivalent to a hunter from the class strength 100, endurance 100, speed 100, mana 150, fatigue 15%. He also received the skill spirit of the king, which in the last battle put enormous pressure on him, and he and someone are knocking. They are trying not to let her in the door, but she says that being the head of Gaiety, she cannot enter his room just to visit the patient. Kim Tin is surprised to see her. Yuan is the head of Gaiety, and then we are transported to her in the car. A man is sitting in the back seat and says, listen Ms, after all, I'm the driver here. To which he replies, okay, here's my guest. I myself. Kim Taehyung doesn't want to rant and immediately gets to the point. What does the head of the Guides of Night Wanderings have to do with him? She answers him, didn't she say? She just wants to look at the one who survived the apocalypse and take him on the way home. Kim Taek doesn't believe her and replies that for this stupid reason the head of the guide herself is taking him home. Those more plausible lies to what her and he immediately gives up, and you pour on him the truth that the third test is survival in the battle arena, where spectators will be able to watch them and his abilities will be revealed. For sure all the guides will want to take him in. An awakened low rank who can give him water even with a rank. What does he want? Glory, money. She will give him everything he wants, so she offers him join the Nightbeards. But Kim Taehyung, he replies that he doesn't want to. This is his trick that greatly surprised Yeon. Took the Taekyon home. He thanks her for this, but she still can't understand why he refused to join her guide. She asks him why he refused. Didn't you hear I said I'll give you everything you want? Tell me what you want, or you have there is already a preliminary agreement with another guide, or maybe you spoke incorrectly. He thinks that she is already starting to irritate him. He replies that he doesn't have a particular reason for the conditions, or other guides aren't night walkers so special, he just doesn't want to and won't. With this, he says goodbye to she, riskily heads towards Techno, grabbing him from the back and splashes out her aura. She is very angry because Kim Taehyung refused her without a good reason, but she will spare him because she liked him. The driver shouts to Mrs. Yeon to stop and Kim Hena to agree to her app. After all, such a wonderful opportunity came into his hands again. Taehyung turns to her and says what a serene stubbornness Lim Aoin. She can't understand how he knows this name and asks him. He replies that he just knows she doesn't have the strength to cope with emotions because of anger. There is a surge of a monstrous aura, and the next second she is already holding Kim Tana by the throat. Meanwhile, the driver thinks that they have problems. The real name of the head is Gideon Lyman. Initially she was raised as the successor of the KNG company. But after a new daughter was born and the name was taken away and she turned into an outcast, after this is why she changed her last name and became a hunter, and now few people know about this fact. Holding Kim Technically by the throat, he asks how he dares to say this to her face, but he replies, "You were the first to start." She tries to put pressure on the Amazon spirit, but he resists with the help Loco of the Predator and Bert, and by the hand conducting a counterattack with the spirit of the King of the Night, and this counterattack is successful. Yuan hastily tries to break the distance. Yuan is in shock. She does not understand what kind of power this is. In turn, MHN thinks that he still cannot fully withstand the power of the rank. She pushes him back. He slowly approaches the wall. She looks at him in fear. Our main character warns her not to cross the line, and then we are transported instead of the third stage of the Hunter exam to the Colosseum in ancient Rome. Unlike the first two rounds, which were held closed, the third round of spectators will be able to observe in person, so a whole crowd of people went to the exam site. Is there even Mayan, who is disguised, eating popcorn and thinking about Tech 1? The Techno family thanks him for the opportunity to witness the exam with their own eyes, but they are also very worried. After all, this exam is very cruel, and his cousin, in turn, as always, he's rocking. He's stuck a bunch of posters on himself to support me, and he reassures the family because MHN is the strongest. He defeats everyone with one blow, and the reporter thinks that this time she needs to find the perfect news. Last time the interview was cancelled due to the fact that Kina has a low rank and her director didn't approve of this. In fact, he doesn't know a lot about army. She's upset and thinks maybe KMX has already been expelled. If this time she doesn't pick up some worthwhile news, she'll definitely be fired. Meanwhile, there's a strange atmosphere in the stadium. Everyone from the newcomers has awakened a look at one person, and this man MK Chen, the reporter, is excitedly thinking, are they really planning to take revenge to destroy him alone? How strong is his wife? And at that moment she realizes that it is Kim Chen, and at that moment the third stage of the exam begins. The exam is directed at all his attacks at me. Because Hieron himself is awakened in spirit, if they do and deal with him, he will become a real problem. But MHN breaks out from under the school of their attacks, and with one blow shows himself where their place is. Something strange under your feet, it's a trap. A plant flies quickly my body. He is surprised what it is for such an ability. A guy with green hair tells Kim not to count the crows because the winner of this tournament will be he is the genius Arango, and not you. But MHN quickly breaks his sweet dreams and throws his head into the arena. The others try that he is just a monster, but look if they hit him with attacks. Constantly he's so tired, and then he uses his recently doomed Trump spirit of the King of the Night. He nails them to the floor of the arena. Everyone is simply in shock. They can't understand that he's using this ability. He thinks that he's crazy for using such an ability in front of everyone. looking around the battlefield on which lie the bodies of those defeated by the exam Emma. He thinks that it looks like the cleanup is ready. Is Mayeon left? He turns to her. Well, will Mayeon refuse? Now or I will do what I did in the first round. But she is not going to give up and uses the ability that creates D around them bathed and shouts to Kim to better worry about himself because such a situation will not happen again. But Kim is not sure about this. He grins and the next moment we already see how Mayeon falls helplessly near Hena. Completely defeated, he says in turn that she is all after all for him. The most difficult baking sheet is the completion of the test and the best. Exam becomes testing number 920 Kim HN. We are transported to the office of the head of the association and he presents a gift to Kim Nu in honor of passing the exam and congratulates him on becoming a hunter of the rank of director. He is still surprised that the exam passed so unambiguously. But still MTY Hin himself passed the dungeon apocalypse. To which Kim Taek replies that he was just lucky. In turn, the director of the association asks if Kim Taek has any thoughts about growing up in the Association of Players of the New Korea. Kim Taehyung is in complete shock. He cannot comprehend the situation yet. Recently he was not awakened and fought with ranks, and now for him to become the first is not only enough to witness the tragedy, but also Ji-hee, who can be called the best in New Korea, is also trying to recruit him. But still he does not fully understand the situation. But he knows one thing for sure, that for now he will refuse this offer. Zitzen he doesn't understand. He asks this is Hena, why is he refusing? To which our main character replies that he has no special reasons for this, it's just that it will be more effective to act alone. He apologizes for not being able to help. The director of the association laughed all over voice. But he couldn't even think that someone would say that it's better to be alone than a member of a guild or in an association. But the director of the association hasn't finished yet. He has another exciting proposal. Would Kim like you in and participate in an Asian-friendly tournament? We're a little carried away forward to the dungeon where there is already a bunch of corpses of monsters due to the fact that he was cleared by Kim Taehyung, and he is thinking about the director's proposal to participate in the tournament. After all, the Asian-friendly tournament is a festival where in each Asian country 5 representatives from the Guide Association are elected and they compete with each other with a friend in hunting monsters and demons. However, in order to be elected as a national representative, hunters not only chase certain monsters and demons, they contribute to the development of the country. Some kind of social value is needed, so now someone is clearing out the dungeon. New Korea was opened about a month ago, but even so, it's difficult for him to grow up, and in order to raise the bar of social value he needs to go to one place. Even though it will be very dangerous. And we are transported to the house of the director of the Sun Group. He is furious because his son is still in the hospital and the one who did this to him became Hunter Yes rank. The bodyguard tries to calm him down, but he doesn't listen to him. He throws the guardian's body on the floor, but he is interrupted by an assistant who says that the villains have arrived. He is even more angry because this is the Giddy to whom he gave so much money, and they could not even cope with the offender of his son. But then everything floats before his eyes and the deputy head of the villain's shadow appears in front of him. Meanwhile Kim Taehyung comes out of the portal and is met by a hunter of rank from the Gilly Alchemists. He will accompany him in the auction house, and he also asks the photographer Kim Taehyung. MKHN doesn't really like this. The situation is that the point auction is large scale in Asia. It has excellent trading lots and also excellent service. And the best thing is the protection of public peace. Razi Bitahin thinks that this place certainly deserves to be called the best in terms of security. But today there is a terrorist attack by the demon SRA. We are transported to the auction, and we are presented with the best lot of today, and this Phoenix potion will melt a sip of potions. Your stamina and magical power have increased by 20 points. Akeem can only wait until the terrorist takes his action to defeat him and gain publicity. Henna is still not enough to regression. All that was known was that the point losses turned out to be serious, and that the main culprit of the terrorist attack was a demon of the rank of Narendran Nehru, and also he does not know who the hell suppressed that terrorist attack. And the accompanying Kim Taehyung Pagona brings him a caring ice cream, and our main character asks him who is responsible today for security at this auction. Adno immediately became wary. Why are you asking this? But NK Chen said that he was just curious. But their conversation is interrupted by an unpleasant guidance from a man. It's you who is a hunter. NK Chen is right. the youngest 12th hunter with the rank of Korea. This man is Shaitan Isaka Reich. Japanese hunter Angus Seo accompanying Chi Techno asks him to be careful because he even killed his colleagues for his own benefit for this. Between the hunters, his name is Shaitanum. He extends his hand to Techno, and at the moment of the handshake he splashes out his aura and is surprised that Kim Taehyung can withstand this aura, even though our main character can withstand this aura. But ordinary people are unlikely to pull it up, and they suffer a lot. The Shaitan says that apparently he went too far with the shrut for the guy who just acquired Iran. But you will understand that they are all IP ranking equal to each other. You don't know why you came here, but don't do something stupid and fail quietly. The Kid Hin is already furious. But so far he hasn't done anything, and the Shaitan leaves, leaving them alone with themselves. 80 Hen thinks that because of this bastard, everything will become more complicated than he thought from the very beginning. Meanwhile, we are transported to the entrance to the auction, where the violators have arrived and the security thinks to quickly deal with them. But the next moment they are already destroyed, and the captains of the security are devoured by some unknown monster, and Nehru of the S-class is to blame for everything. One of the gang approaches Narendra Nehru and warns her that another one has appeared at the auction, a hunter from the rank of Kim Taehyung, but Max says that this is Murray. As long as he is here, no one will interfere with his plan, and in the next moment there are many explosions in the auction buildings. Hyen's raider tells them that they urgently need to evacuate. But in Henna's head at that moment many thoughts are running through. He knew that there will be a terrorist attack. But such a sudden explosion, when they planted a bomb at that moment next to them, it turns out one of the bandits, who says that everyone gave him money, but Kim Taehyung instantly cuts off his head with one movement of the dagger. Kim Taehyung tells his escorts to pass on information about what is happening in the auction house, and in the meantime he will catch those who caused this disaster. The guards are trying to protect the purchased lots, but the leader of the criminals orders them to be killed, and in the next moment the body of the guard falls to the ground and the criminal finds the Phoenix potion. Now he understands why Mr. Nehru asked for this potion, and he feels its power, and even thinks this is an opportunity to drink it and gain enormous strength. But the next second someone quickly deals with all his subordinates. He thinks this skill is invisibility, and the next moment he gets Ron with a knife. He uses his chain skill and finds Kion, who is hiding in invisibility, and is surprised at being able to track enemies in Mode C, and thinks that it would be possible to absorb him with the help of Neko the Predator. And in the VAR Gate control office, the guards lie unconscious. Ordinary people who came to the auction are tied up and are being held hostage. And they are surrounded by countless hordes monsters, and Narendra Nehru thinks that everything went smoothly, but his assistant comes up to him and says that a message has arrived from the one you sent for the Phoenix potion, but there was a problem, and the next moment we hear the voice of Kim Tech from the walkie-talkie. Narendra is surprised and asks, "So who are you?" He also answers him that is the one who took his potion. If he wants to get it back, then he quickly needs to come to Mty Henna. Damn criminal. Narendra Nehru thinks that Plek Se allows. Meanwhile he is peacefully drinking the Phoenix potion. Did you really think that he would leave for that? To Dogen, his mana stamina suddenly increased. He thinks that this potion really expresses its effect because he was constantly running around the dungeons. But his show was increased so much as soon as he drank this potion. So he no longer has to worry about the Phoenix potion getting into the hands of demons. He hears steps. It's Shaitan with his henchmen. But they don't see anyone, they're all dead. One of them says that they last contacted from here. Did he really escape? But Shaitan says that MK Chen is standing right in front of them and orders his Posakim. He's surprised, because he thought that this skill is perfect. Well, everyone reveals the yoke so quickly. Shaitan asks that he is a type of hunter and rank, and that he even forgot here. Kim Chen answers, "And you yourself are not the one who is responsible for security. You should now try to stop the roar." Sings the armed forces. What happened? What happened? There were a lot of guards in the building. They were able to find so many bombs, especially since it gets up and it's impossible to leave without permission. Seeing how the demons are breaking in here, he expected that there would be a traitor. But who would have thought that the link with the demons would be the general director of the security company? Shaitan laughs and attacks Mtek. He wants him to give him that thing. But Kim Taehyung does not intend to give up so easily, and a fierce battle begins between them. Rush Rai are amazed to see the battle with ranked hunters. But they don't even think of interfering because he calls him a Shaitan. if they carefully interfere with him. Then they too at this moment the Shaitan will get the Technom exchanges blows. He thinks even though they have similar invisibility skills his opponent can definitely see him, but the henna has to guess the direction of the attack only by its sound and the feeling of threat, and at that moment the Shaitan delivers a crushing blow with a sword that hits the henna. Our main character could never have imagined that their skills would be so different, but this BC was Prime Zell and uses Koro Knight's Byron that instantly knocked out all of Shaitan's minions, but Shaitan was able to avoid the effects of the skill. HN turns his Zor up, and their Shaitan prepares to inflict on him crush on the Taco. HN haste uses the stone skin skill and puts a block, uses his dagger, if it weren't for the skill of the chain that he absorbed into the bit before that. Probably the henna would have already been pierced through, and now Shaitan has nowhere to run. He directs the flail to his side. They kill the body of this scumbag, and ours, the main character, finally delivers a crushing blow to this bastard. Having dealt with Shaitan's group, he instructs them, tied up in the corridor. This bastard is still trying to express something to someone, Hino, and our main character is already pretty tired. So he knocks him out, and Techen orders Shaitan's henchmen to betray Narendra Nehru with information and adds that applications for the terrorist attack have already been transferred to the associations and soon they will arrive here. Nora and Hay, who has come to his senses, says that MKHN does not know much. We are transported to the headquarters of the association, where Susan Geek, the master of the alchemists of the IS rank, runs in. He is very concerned about the terrorist attack at EST Point because there were his DIY items are on display. The resident of the Hunters Association tries to calm him down and says that with the elite hunters from the leadership of Pax Gene, they can easily cope with the criminals. The chemist master asks why they haven't arrived yet. And the reason is that they can't get there because the gate control office was captured and all the VAR gates were blocked. The master of the Alchemist Guild is very concerned. But the maiden's dream continues that there are two hunters, Iran and MKHN, although he recently received a rank. But most likely he himself will be able to defeat Narendra Nehru, and unexpectedly John comes to them. For now we are transported back to Techno. He talks with the Shaitan who recently came to himself. Yes, in turn, he talks about Narendra Nehru's skill, a contract with the devil. He can make sacrifices and howl monsters in the appropriate quantity and quality of offerings. Our main character is surprised, and then the plan becomes clear and terrifying everyone that Narendra Nehru is now holding more than 100 people hostage. He is also famous for his Iran, and his monster is distinguished by enormous strength. If he sacrifices all the people in the spot, then a catastrophe will occur. The Shaitan is mocking someone else because even though he defeated him, but Narendra Nehru is definitely too tough for him. He will only have to watch as innocent hostages are sacrificed to others or die in a battle that he clearly cannot win. Subordinate Narendra reports that he was captured and now his whereabouts are unknown. I ask the magician what to do. The depths of Nehru answers him that if he doesn't want to show himself, then they will force him, and he begins to sacrifice hostages. And then the light disappears. Ma notices that the victim who has disappeared is VM Novine, and then MK Chen appears behind him using the chain skill in combination with the stone skin skill. He tries to strike the Rand at the last. Mac manages to dodge for a second, but he hit him with his chains. But it was a mistake. A bunch of snakes come out of the bandage. Inder attacks him with fireballs and destroys his chains. The hostages, noticing Nago, try to beg him for salvation, but he has no time for that now. He threw away this aura. However, he is able to free himself from the pressure of this aura. And Narendra explains that this is because the monsters, his contract with the devil, is not like ordinary monsters, but they are under his power and obey only him, absorbing his magical power. They become stronger than their relatives, much stronger in hordes. These monsters are heading towards Kim Taehyung, inflicting a crusher on him, and he spits out blood, and Narendra is already ready to celebrate his victory. One thick-headed hostage throws a rata because he ignored their requests for salvation. He went to personally fight with the monsters and cannot defeat them. But the other explains to him that look, thanks to this hunter, the monster doesn't give a damn about us, although he gives in. He doesn't run away from the monsters, and thanks to this, not a single new monster is sent to the hostages. And then they realize how generous the Savior is and is imbued with his feelings of support towards me. Using chains, Our main character pacifies two monsters and shouts, "Yes, really, shut up." Finally, the hostages are still interfering with the monsters. There is no end and all this is a threat. Rand tells him, "So you are ready to give up?" But then he turns to the hunter. "Let's finish the sun this pro MKH," and explains to his escort that now the main problem, the fact is that the gate control office is now captured and swarming with summoned monsters. If they were just demons, then there would be no problems. However, monsters cannot only observe situations. And the worst thing is that they have living hostages, and this is where your skill comes in handy. Filthy gate control, Hena asks, but in order to connect the association gate with the VPO gate you need to pass the deformation point. To which our main character explains that this is not necessary. He only wants to eliminate the monsters and then the gate is activated and monsters are sucked into it. Ren does not understand what is happening. MHN shouts it's rotten for him to leave with the hostages because now he has an opponent of the same rank as him, and to give AS he can't be distracted by protecting anyone. The bastard Nook evacuates the hostages and a fierce battle begins between Kim Taehyung and Narendra Nehru. The fireball is heading towards ours, the main character. But he evades him by binding the fragments with his chains. He throws them towards the magician. Narendra Nehru is very indignant that Kim is theirs. He dared to compare his ass with his own, and he summons a fire dragon and directs it towards the enemy. Our main character tries to defend himself, but he cannot evade this attack and he suffers colossal damage. But Mac does not stop there and continues to call on monsters. He wants to finish off Kim Taehyung, who apparently lost consciousness from the last attack. All the monsters are rushing towards him. Come to your senses. Kim Yoo-hin answers Narendra Nehru, "What is today? The day is the day of your wake. Next year activating a predator and devouring all the monsters in its path." Narendra Nehru shocks. This brat has been hiding his true power all this time, but he also hid a party up his sleeve. Using his skill he sacrifices his people and calls a huge bone dragon of IS rank is thrown out. Managed to escape from a fatal fall. But then a dragon appears in front of his eyes and uses his attack. Using a predator he tries to absorb this dragon, but unfortunately she doesn't succeed. The dragon uses his breath and a huge explosion occurs. Max, in turn, is amazed because he didn't expect that Kim Taehyung would be able to survive after such an explosion with the last of his strength. Using chains to save himself from falling, MHN is trying to think about what he's doing because this monster is very strong and he was barely able to block its attack thanks to the strength of the predator. He can't believe that they are really the same person from rank. But he has a chance. Because forced control of such power probably consumes a lot of energy, and Narendra should already be at his limit. If he still takes his time, then he has a chance of victory. But as if chata of his thoughts, Narendra replies that "I'll take time, this is really good idea." But with him such tricks will not work and he directs the dragon towards the escaped hostages. In the meantime, we are transported to the VAR Gate Management Office of the Korean Association of Hunters. They have finally established a connection with the VPO Gate. But the only country that is honestly in touch is the New Korea, and therefore she warns Pak Jin that if he enters, he will be in danger, to which he replies that this is nonsense, and leads his subordinates to save his colleagues at EST Point. Kim Taehyung, using the predator and all his remaining strength, tries to block the dragon's attack aimed at the hostages. Mac knew that Kim Taehyung will choose to protect the hostages and tells him to burn alive with them, and Gon tells Kim Taehyung not to think about them and to run away. Our main character understands that this is a logical decision, because one-on-one with a racial bone dragon, he still cannot. The only right decision is wait for Narendra Nehru's limit, but he still can't give up. He's trying to find out how to save everyone, and then he hears an unknown voice. He turns around. Behind him only the hunter Pogo Nook appears. A notification that the predator's rank has been temporarily revised, and he has been raised to the rank of Reese. Strength increased. Body cannot resist the power of the predator. Kim Taehyung cannot understand what it is, and the predator rises to S and SSS ranks and ultimately reaches the rank SS. The magician cannot understand what is happening. Meanwhile, Kim Taehyung cannot understand what kind of power the king gave him, and what that was. The voice Kim's body Tachyon begins to collapse because he cannot withstand such a huge force. He wonders whether he will really die such a senseless death, as he has come to this. No matter what happens, he cannot die like that, he simply cannot. But no matter how hard he tries, he falls to the ground, deprived of strength. Mac thinks, Has he really become a victim of his own knock? However, even taking into account the fact that he has switched off, the skill still continues to be used. He directs to the body of Kim Taehyung, but a crushing attack arrives at him. Something has taken possession of Kim Taehyung. Renda asks who he is in his turn. He hears none of your business. Because you are already dead with one wave of your hand, he erases Narendra from the face of the earth in his subconscious. He cannot understand where he is. He is attacked by his own skills. He is trying to understand why his skills are causing him damage. And then an unknown voice tells him, since when is this your power? If you get sick, then spit out everything you swallowed. And yes, from the bed our main character wakes up and thinks it was a dream. No, his right hand was lost in battle. No, on the spot a hunter comes into his room. He offers a snack. He tells him this apartment Gady organized alchemists for him. Thanks to him, he was able to save many victims and also arrest the Reich, who was allegedly deceived by demons. Also many sympathizers came, from his family to the president of the association. But Kim Taehyung doesn't care much about this now. He's trying to find out what happened. It looks like in the S&D battle, he lost his mind. The knife would have been wanted to know what happened. We are transported to the moment when the tech's body was taken over by an unknown force, and the toadstool hunter cannot understand what happened. A couple of seconds ago Narendra Nehru was here. Who is standing in front of him looks like Kim Yoo-hyun, but it's definitely not him. Turning around, this creature with one look knocks him out, but here comes the limit of the body. She says that nothing can be done and for now it will go away. Leave Kim Taehyung lying on the earth, where the hunter Pox John finds him in his fatherland. John vows the area of the hostages, finding out that their lives are not in danger. But the location of Narendra Nehru and his demons are still unknown. June can't understand what the hell happened here. Augur, he interviewed all the survivors, but they only remember that Kim Taehyung tried to become Rand and nothing concrete. As if something had interfered with their memory, and if something it will become clearer. He will definitely inform Kim about this. In the thoughts of the main character Vit, that although he said that this was done early, it is impossible. He does not know how my hand was regenerated, which was destroyed due to the excessive activity of the predator, and perhaps Nadra also fell from him. He discovers the skill belonging to the list of his skills. However, this is a little strange because he thought that the mage had the skill of summoning monsters, but it turns out that the skill opens the gates to the abyss. This requires 200 mana and Kim Henna's current mana is 180. So it is not enough to activate the skill, and the already departed Pax Jean says that our GG has another guest, Kim Taehyung. He is surprised, and the next moment whether Mayeon comes to see him, she says that she is visiting a sick person. Give him a basket of fruit, and if you want more videos like this, like and subscribe to my channel. Well, Kirill was with you. Good luck and see you soon.